I'm thinking something like... Hey y'all, it's Amber.
And Melanie. And today we got the privilege of hearing Amber talk about her story. I feel very honored that you really shared some deep parts of yourself. So thank you for doing that. But how'd that feel, talking and sharing some of that?
It felt really cool because I talk about it in the podcast, but I was nervous. And I was like, what? Oh, I don't have any. Do I have anything to share? Mm-hmm. And I can't wait to listen back to this and feel again like, wow, you're cool. I'm just excited to listen to myself and be like, I love you so much.
Oh, yeah. So you guys tune in and listen to Amber talk about how to love yourself. Really good. Thank you for doing that.
My pleasure.
Yeah, enjoy. Yeah.
I want to tell you that I want to be your friend. You're taking your friends to an island. You want to cook for them. I just want to let you know that I'm available.
We're friends, girl.
Okay.
Be a friend.
I've seen the fruits of that labor.
I'll cook for you.
Okay.
I'll have you over and cook for you.
No, you're a great friend.
You can go on our trip.
No. No.
I would love that. I'm serious.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Miss Amber.
Oh, yes.
Let's talk about you.
Oh.
Let's let the wonderful people know who you are.
Oh, yeah.
Those that don't know or want to know more.
I mean, that's always like what do you want to know? I don't know.
Well, the podcast is about our trauma and using laughter. Mm-hmm. Let's start with, this was your birth child. This is you creating this. Tell us why you wanted to do this.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned it before, but in the past couple of years, have just gotten really interested in self-love and care and getting to know myself more and fall more in love with myself. And I really love it. And I want that for other people. And I do comedy every single day, all the time. I'm always doing comedy and around comedians. And they are, there are some people who are with it and into the self-love game and stuff, but there's a lot of people who are more into the self-hate game and think that's how a comedian should be. So I was just like, oh, it'd be really cool if we got these people in to a space of like welcoming whatever they're feeling and saying. And it's been really nice. The people we've had on have been open, and I feel like I'm surrounding myself more so in my daily life with just people who are open and headed in the same kind of direction that I am. So it's nice.
I love that.
Yeah.
What made the self-love, what made that feel important to you at this point in life, in your career? Like, what, if you want to share whatever personal, like, led you there to saying, this is something really important? Like, how'd you know that was important for you now?
Yeah, it was important because I reached a point where I was like, if I keep treating myself how I'm treating myself emotionally, then I will not be able to do comedy long term. And I love it so much. So I was like, I gotta do something about this. So that's when I went to a therapist for exposure therapy. Because I've been performing my entire life, like literally out of the womb. I used to charge my family $0.25 to watch shows in their living room that I didn't pay rent for.
It.
I've always loved performing. But like during college and a little before that, I grew up with a single mom, and so she was like my manager, my stylist, my makeup art, literally everything, my chauffeur, all of this.
She was the momager.
Yes,
Isn't that
exactly.
What they call it?
Yes.
Manager, momager.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those.
Yeah. And I put a lot of my anxieties on her, and she handled it the best she could. She did a great job, but also in a way gave into, like, helped me create a pattern. It wasn't on her, but I was like, this works for me. I get anxious, you reassure me, and we do that forever. You know,
that's how we all create the patterns by family dynamics. Your mom's the first person you have a relationship with.
Yeah.
So that's how you learned it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So speaking of the patterns, what, if you want to share, what patterns did you notice you wanted to change that was going on that wasn't helpful?
I would not, now I know I was not meeting my expectations in a show, or performance or whatever in an event. Then I just thought that I was failing and doing really poorly. But what was happening is I was having very high expectations, whether it was comparing it to a former, like a previous performance, or just something in my head that I thought should have happened.
Yeah.
And I needed someone close to me that I trusted to tell me, like, you're going to be okay. You're actually really good. You're funny. Down to like tiny little things. If they told me enough that I was funny like a million times, then I'd be like, but was my hair like bumpy? And then she'd have to tell me a million times that my hair wasn't bumpy. And it'd get down to like tiny little, like, were my teeth okay? It was just like nitpicky little things.
Yeah.
Until I was so exhausted that we were both so exhausted that I would fall asleep, or that she would be like, be quiet. You know, like, she was like, Amber, don't ask me anything else. You know,
I don't want to say how did that feel, but I can imagine. Well, like that little you, like needing their assurance, and then just I totally am resonating with Mom and knowing like that feels like a lot. It felt like a lot for you too, but I can imagine what that felt like for you, of like, I can't help you here. You know?
Yeah, dude, it almost, like, this is surprising me right now, but it almost makes me want to cry right now, because since doing the exposure therapy, I've been really like, oh man, I did so great. Like I fixed it or whatever, or I addressed it. But it was, I never really thought about how painful it was for me. I was just like, I'm not annoying anymore. You know? It's really, I'm feeling it in my hands right now. Like, I used to just clench my hands really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard it's like a drug. You're like, this is the only thing that's going to make me feel better, and I can't get it. And I just want to like burst out of my skin, because I'm like, I need it.
Yeah.
You know?
I heard someone say the other day, we're not born learning or knowing how to judge. We learn it ourselves and other people. It sounds like you're really judging self. Where do you think you learned that?
What do you mean I'm judging self?
Like that harsh critic. Like you're the constant, what you need, you're trying to reassure that inner critic by out here, because you're criticizing self inside. And so you're the constant asking, was this okay? Was this okay? And you get this like this performance thing or achievement of, I even did good at not being annoying. There's a critic saying you're annoying.
Yeah.
Right? Or even having needs is annoying, or is a problem or a burden for other people. But we pick that up. We're not born learning how to judge ourselves or judge other people.
Yeah, that's so real. A baby doesn't be like, oh, I cried a lot today. They just cry.
That's your first coping skill of getting needs met, is crying. You can't talk. So crying is the way you're like, I'm hungry. It's how you communicate your needs, is crying. And so many people shame themselves for crying.
Yeah. I guess I definitely hear what you're saying, and I love that. But I don't know the balance between, because, this hurts me to say, but I was to an extent annoying.
To who? Your mom. What?
Yeah.
That's such a subjective thing.
I mean, she never said I was annoying, you know?
How did you perceive? Everything's perception.
Yeah.
What made you perceive that you were annoying? If she didn't say it.
I could feel, and, you know, I did this with my boyfriend Alex too. And so these are more recent memories with him, because, you know, they're more recent. I guess their anticipation of like, or their look when I like after a show and I didn't want to say it, but I would start like doing my hands like this and it would get quiet and I'd be like, do you think, like it always started with like, do you think, or I'd try to like get around it and they'd be like, you know.
Well, I think it's that compassion fatigue that can happen. It's like if that was something that happened all the time, it's that codependency, like, you know, and so it's hard to continue to have empathy over extended amounts of these situations that keep happening.
Totally.
To where it's, I mean, I can't speak for them, but I think when we get tired and to where we can't tap into the empathy part is that they know they're like offering, they're trying to fix something. It's that subtlety of when that's kind of how that works. It's like, I'm not okay and I don't know what to do with it. So I need help. And so we'll ask for that in different ways.
Yeah.
And when they can help you be okay, you feel okay. And so that's the circle part. And so it's difficult to maintain empathy or compassion in a dynamic like that. But you learn to say, well, this is me and my problem. You know?
Yes.
It makes me annoying. You just didn't know how to do it differently.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah,
that's very true. Because now I'm so much better. My brain, my thoughts can be like, oh, I'm doing that thing, and I can like feel the feelings. On the flip side, though, now I get super aware of like if I'm asking Alex about advice on a hat color or I'm like, am I doing the thing? Can I not make my own decisions? And so I'm like, am I doing it again? I don't know the balance between like trusting myself and I don't know. I think I have OCD.
Well, ask for feedback, but make your decision first.
Oh, what do you mean?
What color hat? Which one? Decide for yourself before you ask Alex. Say, do I like this one or this one? I like this one. Then you can ask for feedback.
But if he says the other one, I'm like, oh shit, I'm back at square one.
And you doubt, like, I like to pick in my head which one I kind of like, or even if I can't figure it out and I ask for someone, I pay attention to what I feel when they pick one. Because sometimes you're like, yeah. And sometimes you're like, oh. And I'm like, oh, I know which one I want. They're just validating what I already know when I do that. Does that make sense?
It does.
So.
And now that I'm thinking about it, I do make my own like, even if I like consider his for a little longer, but I really like this one, I'm like, I'm going with this one.
Yeah. Good.
Then I'll be like, I'm going with this one. He's like, go for it.
Good. Practice. That's all. Everything's practice.
You're right.
Yeah.
All life is practice. Isn't that fun?
Sorry, I'm not going to turn this into a therapy session.
No, I don't think you are.
Okay. I'm just interested. It's interesting to talk about this stuff. But what can you share around, you talked about your mom and kind of growing up. What kind of came from that and how you use comedy and laughter? Because that seems like that was something really getting intertwined if you're doing the performance thing that early.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I don't know. I personally feel like it was a calling, like it was something I was meant to do because
it was just never a question. It was just like,
no,
this is me.
I mean, even as like a young kid, I really loved dogs and animals. I grew up on a farm, so we always had animals, like 9 dogs at a time, just like everywhere. And there was like a brief, like, will she be a vet? And I was like, maybe, but I'm going to do acting. I'm going to be a performer. So
it wasn't always comedy on the front end. It was just performing. What kind of performance were the charge and the quarter for?
Oh,
what were you doing?
Great. It was a variety show. Me for an hour. Doing whatever I wanted. Captive audience.
I love it. What would you do?
I would, I love to dance. So I would make up, I would choreograph songs. So I do like 2 or 3 songs. And then that was a lot of it. And then I would I guess I would do some jokes, but just like riffing with the family.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was dance. I guess honestly, I thought about being a dancer for a while too, but
well, you break it down on stage
I do.
whenever you're coming out.
I love it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So yeah, from an early age. So how can you speak to how, we kind of talked to other guests about this, the comedy part, or where maybe even if it's not comedy, but the performance of having to be on.
Yeah.
If you already felt on all the time, but if that was how you were naturally operating as a child, then that I would imagine is like how you knew to move through things. Was that a big piece of how you moved through things?
Yeah, definitely. I think I think I was a good comic relief for my whole family when something was very dark and sad. I was able to like joke about dark things, and my family was receptive to it. And I like broke up the tension with jokes.
Yeah.
Which before I was just like, I'm a Libra, but now I just feel like, let me break up this tension. But yeah, I'm like, I am like the funny one in my whole family's funny, but I'm like the performer, Amber's gonna like say something or do something that's gonna like, be goofy. I feel like through college and stuff, I was more of like, I was funny, but I took things more dramatically. But now I am able to process things with a little more humor, if that makes sense.
So the humor wasn't being used younger to process things. When you say you were dramatic, what does that mean?
I took everything to heart and was just like, it was so serious. Like if someone didn't like me or if someone broke up with me, oh God. If I went through a breakup, dude, it was like, I had to leave my job. I'm like, I can't bag groceries right now. I have to go home. And they're like, okay, So I don't remember handling any of that with humor. It was very sad. Even young, like a breakup would just like, oh God, this is
gut wrenching.
Yeah, dude. I would be like, oh, it's so embarrassing to even say. But just like in middle school, I'd be like, I'm going to kill myself, and he's like, okay, please don't. I just like, yeah, that was rough. Just not wasted a lot of time, but like looking back, I'm like, oh, poor girl. I'm so glad you didn't kill yourself over that guy.
Yeah, me too. Glad you didn't. But that's some hard pain that it feels that dark, that the choices, I might want to not be here anymore.
Yeah.
And so did you have an outlet for all those feelings?
I guess art, acting.
Yeah.
But even that was, had so much intensity behind it, because if I didn't get a role, or if I think I did poorly in an audition, I would just be like, am I good enough? Am I? And it was just always like, it was like this.
Yeah.
Growing up until like 2 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. I'm just now realizing that it was just like.
So what allowed to let go 2 years ago?
I think being older and having to make a choice, and like killing myself I wasn't interested in that. That wasn't an option, like it was like I said before, I really am enjoying comedy. I'm good at it. I found something where I feel home and it's going really well. And I saw two paths. Like I can stop doing it and pick something else and maybe see what happens. Or I can like fix this and keep going with comedy, but I can't do comedy if I keep holding all of this tension and like judgment of myself.
Yeah.
So I made a really mature, solid choice to be like, I'm going to find a therapist and try to address this and see if she can help me, you know?
And that's where the exposure therapy.
Right.
Do you want to share about that? Anything?
Yeah. She was great, man. It's funny because she was younger than me and very much like pretty blonde hair and just like perfect looking. And I was like, oh, I'm about to work this session. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to skirt on this. But she was tough, dude. She saw right through me and was like, I will say about myself that something I'm grateful for is that when I see something, and I've been like this my whole childhood, my mom was always like, I never had to tell you to do anything. Like if you wanted something, you got it. Like with college, she was like, you just had scholarships all of a sudden. You just applied for those by yourself. I moved to Chicago. Like if I want something, I'm going to do it. And so with the exposure, she was like, you're going to have to do this. And even though I was like, bro, that sounds fucking terrible. I was like, okay, this week I'm doing it. I'm not going to wait. I've decided I want to do this. So it'd be like, eventually it got to the thing where she was like, you're going to put yourself in a situation. So for me, it was like, especially after a hard show, you're going to stay after the show. You are not going to text your mom or your boyfriend, who are like my top people. And she gave them a script, or like I had to give them a script. So when I reached out to them, they would be like literally reading like, I love you, but you're asking for reassurance. You can handle this on your own. And I'm like, throat punch.
That's awesome though.
Yeah, it was really like, she had it like broken down, you know, to where I couldn't like get around it. But honestly, I didn't even try to get around it.
I was wondering, I was like, did you actually reach out and that's what they read, or you just kind of knew that would be the response? So you're like, I gotta get through this.
In the beginning, I did. Because, oh my gosh, it was so funny because I had my normal, like, do you think? And they would know that's how it started. So my brain came up with different ways to ask of like, oh, it was so crafty. I was like, would you say, like, if you were someone, and this is not me asking, this was like, would you say someone in the audience still thinks that I'm pretty? Just like hypothetically, and they'd be like, I'm like, damn it.
You're asking for reassurance.
Yeah, exactly. But that only took a couple of times. And then once they like, thankfully, you know, held me to it, I had to start finding different ways for myself. And something that she would say that was really like got me, oh God, it still like makes my stomach go, is when, like, if I'd mess up on a show, she'd be like, what are you thinking when you mess up? And I'm like, what if they never book me? What if I never do a show again? And she was like, well, what if? Like, what if the worst happens? And I'm like, my God, don't ever say that.
I always say, let's play the what if game. And I just see how far we can take it.
Oh my God, that's like Saw.
But you don't actually get anywhere like really bad.
No.
That's the thing.
No.
That a lot of times we are reacting and doing things in response to like these huge fears that we've never really even probably couldn't put accurate words to.
That's so real. That's so real. And from the outside, it's easy to see. Like, I'll have people approach me and be like, I really want to do this show or this club that you did, but I haven't emailed this person. And I'm like, well, literally that's what you have to do. And they're like, yeah, but what if they say no? Or what if they get mad that I emailed them? I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? That's not going to happen. And if it does, you can move on to the next club or show, you know, like.
There's not one thing different.
What do you mean?
Like if they still say no, nothing changed. You still just aren't doing that.
That's so real.
I'm very practical.
You still just aren't doing that. Yeah, so what is that fear? I guess of being vulnerable?
Whatever those judgments of self is. Like that they're a failure. Whatever that fear of like whatever's going to happen. That's what keeps it. That's what blocks us from so much stuff.
Where do you think, is it different for everyone where that comes from? Because when you ask me, I'm like, I don't know a specific moment that would make me think that. I could probably
Oh, it's not one specific moment. It's many over and over. There's ones that planted the seed.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just over and over, just deepen the pattern. Like being in a relationship with someone that participates in that codependent cycle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pattern to where what that leaves you is you don't know how to do it different.
Damn.
Right?
Yeah.
So even just that cycle happening every time was strengthening. When we avoid the thing that we're afraid of, our nervous system is learning that is something to be afraid of.
Oh my God.
Like our nervous system is very primal. It doesn't have our front logic brain to say this is this and this is this over here. It's just very in the moment, present, but it has to look for negativity bias. It has to look for where things are not safe, or so that it can survive and avoid doing that. So we have to be more present moment, but so us really avoiding the thing we're fearful of is strengthening and telling our nervous system that is something to be afraid of, because we're never doing anything different besides just responding to it.
Damn.
Or not responding to it.
I wish we could like put speakers and project that message out into the world. Like, hey guys, look at your patterns. Have a great day. You know? Because I just feel like that's such an awesome perspective, but no, it's just so deep. It's so deeply rooted that it's kind of hard to think that would, like, imagine a society where that's not the case.
It'd be nice. It'd look completely different.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that that's possible?
That all of society doesn't respond to fear? No.
Really?
It's what drives things. Just like pain is a huge motivator for healing. I would say fear is like what moves people to do or not do things. It creates movement. And when we don't know anything different, yeah, I think a lot of us can learn. I think we're evolving, getting there.
But you, like, yeah, it's kind of like saying like Care Bear world without pain, that just wouldn't be as beautiful too as.
Well, I wouldn't want to drive out fear. It's an emotion. We need it for safety. It's what tells you to run when a bear's chasing you. Mm-hmm. But you have to learn that you made it safe and the bear's not chasing you anymore. So we need fear. We need those kinds of emotions, but to survive, it's a very appropriate thing. But the wiring of what is fearful is what needs to change.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. What was so scary about being on stage, or someone believing the things about yourself that you believe, that your hair was ugly, or your teeth, something was wrong with your teeth, or you weren't good on stage that day?
I care about it a lot, and it's something I'm good at, and it made me feel like it was part of me. And so if I'm not accepted in it, I'm like, what else do I have? You know?
So it's a self-worth. Like it was like an extension of you that you put out there to be judged.
Definitely.
And if you already judged yourself, you're like, it'd be reaffirming. So the fearful part of, because I think when we do that, even if we're like, I don't look that great today, you know, sometimes we do that because we know the people around us will say, you look great. What are you talking about? Because we need that little hit of reassurance. Because when I hear a lot of that stuff, it's like, they don't believe it in here. So we get it all from out there. And if you start out as a child learning, you know, that's where you're going to get it. How'd you know to do anything different?
Right.
Until you went to therapy. But there's a fear around, I don't know what word you put it. I don't know, not good enough doesn't sound right. But I'm not going to be accepted in some way or be rejected.
Yeah. You know what fear is coming up when we talk about that is like right now I'm like, see, I do this with like, are things good or bad? But I'm like, oh, is like my love of comedy and performing all kind of tainted because I'm like, is it all just acceptance? But it can't be that, because when I feel, especially lately, you know, and like since I've gone to therapy and I'm on stage and I just feel like I'm being my complete self and I'm soaring, I'm like, this is outside of all human like emotion, you know. I just feel like cosmically in the right place.
Who knows if the way you're doing it before, there's no right or wrong.
Right.
We tend to do it's and, or is it this or that? But it's both and. You don't have to pick. But because if it was going that way, if that was the reason why you were doing it before, you wouldn't know the difference in the feeling that you just described of being on stage and feeling like cosmic in it. You wouldn't know the difference.
Oh, yeah.
And there's probably so many things you learned doing it one way that taught you what it's like to be doing it the way you're doing it now.
That's so true.
Like,
what a great perspective.
I really truly think now, like, you can't fuck anything up. Like, you make what's perceived as a mistake, you learn from it, and then it was like you needed that. I can look back, I'm sure you can too, at ways things happened that were awful at the time, but then you see like where it got you or the lesson it taught you, that you're like, oh my God, I would be completely different if I wouldn't have like gone through that one. Yeah. Wouldn't want to do it again.
Yeah.
Like, thank you, universe. I've learned the lesson.
Right.
You can just give me signs from now on. No more hard stuff. But I don't think you can mess it up. You just learn and keep going.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And that's so true.
Because so much of our energy goes into this forward thinking, that anticipatory anxiety, or the trying to make sure if we worry about it enough, we can avoid the wrong mistake, the wrong path. So much of that energy, it's like, just be in the present. You trust you can handle whatever goes sideways, especially if you've had a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
It's like I learned, I would think 10 steps ahead to look where something could go wrong to try to prepare for it to go right.
Right.
But God, when I let go of that and just like was in the present, I knew I would know how to handle it because I'd been through enough stuff. I was like, I can handle whatever comes. I know how to move through stuff now. Like, even if it's hard. So all that energy gets to be directed into what you're in the present moment doing. And I think from my perspective of you're doing that now.
Yes. Definitely more so than I was before. I feel like you saying this, I can definitely like connect with it more, but I also see that I have more practice to go into it because I'll be like, is this wrong or bad? And then I'll be like, nothing's wrong or bad.
It's a mindset. It's a mindset shift.
Yeah, it is. It's like doing a workout, a crunch, of being like, I don't know. It's a mental.
Well, to me, the healing and growth and stuff, it's not, okay, do this thing different next time. You learned a mindset change that allows everything to go different then from that moment on.
What do you mean?
Like, instead of, how can I learn, like, I'm thinking like more solution stuff of like, how can I learn to not do this? How do I not be annoying?
Yeah.
Why were you feeling like you were annoying, or what was creating the thing that was annoying for you? And when that shifts change, the mind shift being, I'm lovable, nothing's wrong with me, I can accept myself, that's the mindset shift that creates you to experience everything else different. And that's, I've only known you, I think, in this version of you. Yeah. Where I have always admired, like, you're authentic in yourself. Like, to me, it beams off of you. Oh, that you're very comfortable with yourself. And that gives people so much permission to do the same. But to hear now even more your past story of like what you went through, like you earned this. Yeah. Yeah. That's a huge mindset shift that you can just really be present moment and enjoy what you're doing.
I love that. I love it. It kind of reminds me of like or makes me think of the reparenting thing of like, what do you need, babe? Like what's going on? Yeah. That's really nice. I also want to thank you for saying that I earned this. Because in like knowing that we were going to talk about this today, I was thinking about like, high school me and how I got bullied so hard through all of school just for having like goals. And literally someone came up to me once and was like, do you know why I was mean to you in high school? And I was like, why? And he was like, because you wore bell bottoms. I was like, oh, I had fashion. You know, there was okay, error possible.
Because I was cool.
Yeah. But just like, I'm just proud of myself for even when I was down on myself, I was always rooting for myself in some way. You know? Like I
love that.
Always knew what I wanted to do. Didn't stop, you know, for anything or anybody. I was just like, let's freaking go. And even today when there's hard moments, I'm like, you know, through college when people are like, you're never going to make it, don't do it. Like I'm just proud of myself for always like repping for me.
Yes.
Even when I was mean to myself.
There's that little you in there. It's like, you can do it. Come on, mama. You can do it. Yeah. I don't know what that is. Maybe my like spirit or just a drive of something that I really want, but yeah. And I want to say you didn't have to earn it.
Oh, yes.
I just want you and anyone listening to hear, you don't have to earn the right to love yourself. You don't have to bang on yourself enough to say, okay, now I can finally like myself. But it does take work to get there if that's something you struggle with. So like just allow yourself to like bask in how much you love yourself.
Yes.
Without feeling any shame or negative feelings about it.
That's really, I mean, that is the gist of like this podcast and why I started it, because like a lot of comedians, which you've heard, I feel like been like, oh yeah, I'm a comedian, I'm a narcissist, you know. I'm like, no, it's okay to think you're funny and to think you're worth something and to think you're good at something. It's good to think that, like, more of that. Let's all just walk around being like, I'm awesome. Oh, me too. Like, that's what kids do. They're like, look at what I can do. And they're like, I can do this. And they're like, fuck yeah, you know? And we love watching that. And then somewhere along the way, we think it's gross or braggy. And what's the opposite of that? Just hiding, you know? That's like, that's not fun at all until you get hopefully 80. And then you're like, then you don't care. It's really nice to talk about this, because I even talked to my therapist about that you set me up with, so thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Big shout out. Trauma Therapy Nashville. Freaking dope. I love my therapist.
She's great.
She's so great.
I know you'd like her.
Oh my God. And just like coming in, meditating, every single part of it. Oh my God, I walked in, we did art therapy, and I walked in and she had my picture propped up that I did the time before, and I was like, ah! And she was like, oh, do you want me to put that down? I'm like, no, I'm good. But I just like didn't know that art would would hold so much. Anyway, this is getting off topic. But I was telling her, like, we're gonna do a podcast separating, you know, talking about our stories. And for so long, and it being a comedian, like, you go on podcasts and everybody's like, so what's your story? Or, you know, as an entertainer, they're always like, and I never felt like I had one. Like, I felt like my story was just my mom's story, because she has such an intense thing that happened to her.
Yeah.
And I would always be like, this is what I'm going to say. And it's going to get them to be like, whoa. And I've been telling that story my whole life. And once I like branched out on my own and started doing comedy by myself, I'm like, it hurt my feelings. You know, I was like, that's the only interesting thing about me is something that happened to my mom, you know? And I was talking to my therapist, and she was just like, oh, like, well, that's not true. You know, like, break down your past. Like, what were you as a kid, growing up, high school, college? Like, go through your life and like let yourself know that you are someone on your own, you know? And it was nice because I just got to see like how cool I am and like how many how like, yeah, how dope I am. How like, I'm just like, yeah. So it created, it was a cool experience because I still feel a little weird of like, am I interesting enough? Do I have a story? But
yes, you do.
Yeah, I know. I know. I think it's just been so long of feeling that, and no shade toward my mom or anything like that. But it's just like, maybe it's part of being an entertainer of like, oh, this is a story that'll shock them, you know?
How much do you think when you share that was the feedback? Because I've heard you talk with
100%.
other comedians about like the response you get and like what that feels like. So even if it's easing your really difficult part of your story, to get some feedback, like what, will you put some words to that?
Yeah, like
if you want to.
Yeah, like are you saying like how much of me telling that story was because I knew people would react well to it?
Yeah, or that you would get like, whether if it was you were trying to get like a wow, like response.
Yes.
You know,
I knew the response that was coming because I'd been doing it for so long, and so I knew no one had heard a story like that, and they'd be like, oh, tell me more, and then I'd be like, my pleasure, you know. So
tell me, what was that? Can you put some words to that when you're like, people wanted more from you?
Yeah,
even if it was you're using your pain like a pain point for it, you were using it because like, you know, they say we don't keep doing something unless there's a payoff. What was the payoff of like sharing a difficult part of your story?
I felt there was no judgment, so there was no real risk of judgment because it was something that happened to us. So it was like, oh wow, like they were already on my side. They're like, oh my God, that's crazy. And I already had told it so many times, so I felt comfortable with it. So I was like, oh, I can like brush it off, throw some jokes in there, you know. It was just like a safe, and they couldn't have any judgment towards it because they hadn't. I never encountered anybody that had encountered what I was saying, and so it was kind of like I was just like at a campfire being like, listen to this story, and they're like, oh shit, you know. There was no like, oh, but this and this, you know. It was just like my story to tell that I knew was unique, and I am very connected with my mom, you know, so it was another like point of pride of being like, look what we've gone through together and made it through together, which is so true, you know.
But how much have you separated that from your identity versus your story, like part of your story?
What do you mean by that?
Well, that was what you were leading with, like this, like you said, I like what makes you you is like this thing that happened to your mom. You know, when have you been, it seems like you've been able to separate yourself from that to where you have your own story that doesn't feel like what makes you you. Yes. Does that make sense?
I think so. Let me try to respond and you can tell me.
Sometimes I talk in circles.
No, it's okay.
I'm like, okay.
I think something that has happened recently with that story is I'm like, well, it's not only my mom's story. A part of it, of how I was telling it, is her story, but I was also there, so I was also affected. So it is part of my story. But very recently, I mean, I just told you my new therapist, I've only seen her twice, but I was like, I'm nervous because am I going to have something interesting to say? And I don't want to just focus, because instantly my brain will be like, I'm going to bring up how my dad died, you know? Right. I mean, even now I feel like people listening are like, what's the story?
I'm like, I'm being respectful. Like, this is your decision. What you want to share.
I don't mind sharing it. Like my dad was abusive and my mom defended our lives against him, and she shot him and he died, and she went to prison, or she went to jail, and I was without her for a long time. And it was very like, I mean, that story in itself is people like, whoa, what? Yeah. But the underneath of all that, like that I learned about myself, like used to would be like, guess what happened to my mom? But when I became
interesting, yeah.
I became a teacher for a while, and I worked with kids that were my age when that happened to my dad, and I watched my dad die, like I was there for it, and I realized like, oh shit, I was very aware and affected. I thought that 3-year-olds weren't like aware, and then I worked with them, and I'm like, they are the most aware out of all of us.
Yeah.
So then I started to see like how that experience affected my life with relationships and fear and attachment. So it became more of like, oh, this is how I affected it. It's not just like a shock story of like, guess what happened when I was younger, and I'm totally okay with it.
Yeah.
Which I am okay with it, but on certain levels I still have, my own trauma from it.
Well, now that you've shared that part, it sounds, what I hear is you were, by keeping it on your mom, like as your mom's story, that may have been a way that you were able to like move through and cope.
Yes.
And it was protecting you in some way. And when you were ready, you then accepted it as being part of your story so you could like heal with it.
That's nice.
It seems like that was, I don't know, I'm curious if that's, because I was seeing it the other way around of like just keeping it on mom wasn't necessarily a safety thing, but you just saw it as her story and with a lack of your own. But I think it seems like if it was helpful for you to keep it her story. I can only imagine. I didn't know you were 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew, general stuff around your story, but that's young. That's really formative. Times.
It is. And there is a temptation or like a wanting to be like, she suffered more, which I don't think outside me, older me, wiser me, whatever, is like, there is no scale, we both suffered from that event. But I'm just like, I don't know, it feels icky to be like, and this is how it affected me, because it's like,
how is it helpful to like let your mom be the one who suffered more? Like, how did it help you to kind of say, no, it was her and not me? Like, was that helpful?
Yeah, I think I knew more of how to care for her, maybe. Like, I guess I didn't even really ever consider until I taught how.
Yeah.
Like that I was even hurting in any way, Yeah. But it was just easier to be like, damn, isn't that crazy that someone went through that? I mean, people do that all the time where they're like, I'm having a bad day, but like people are starving, like
comparing all the time.
Yeah. This is kind of off, but I had a girl be like, there's so many stray dogs in Costa Rica. I'm like, there's so many stray dogs here. I'm just like, she was trying to find a home for these 2 dogs, and she was like, it's just crazy over there. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can't imagine. But yeah, I guess it was just, I don't know. I feel like sometimes I'm a little obsessed with my mom. Really? So, yeah. So I feel like it's easy to be like, can you believe?
Well, it seems like the attachment piece you talked about, like, if that was like your only parent.
Yes.
Right? But you got into this kind of caretaking role for each other in so many different ways, it seems. How could you not be?
That's so true.
Yeah. How could that not be what happened?
Yeah. And yeah, it's been like, I mean, all of life is learning in a process, but it's been a really wild ride with learning to shift with our relationship. So
I think it's good that you guys can shift.
I think so too. I think so too. We both, well, I won't speak for her. I definitely learn a lot and am learning how to care for someone that I really care deeply for. And also, like one of my therapists called it a hula hoop. Like I can only fit so many things in here. And so just like look back on myself, care for myself, you know? Yeah. Pain leads to growth. And I swear to God, if there was another way, I'd be like, yeah, let's try that.
I'm with you. I'm with you for sure. What do you, you've mentioned doing therapy. What else do you do to try to do this self-love thing?
I love to dance. I love to dance. Oh my God. I love dancing when in like atypical places, like in the grocery store. The grocery store has a banging playlist that I feel like everybody's just ignoring. I feel like we're in the Twilight Zone. I'm like, do you not hear?
Oh, I'm like singing out loud and dancing.
Oh my God. And some have so many big aisles. I'm like, guys, and I just like, I love letting go and dancing, and I'll see people like kind of like feel the vibes, and they're like, oh, like I can just see in them that like, that looks fun. And I'm like, do it. Like, can you imagine a world where we all hear the music and dance? Like,
yes.
That is like living in an orgasm for me. That would be so fun.
I told somebody the other day, I was like, I want to do a drop-in class where it's like a standing day and time of the week where it's an hour. I'm just going to DJ music and people just come drop in and dance, and it'll go on for an hour. So you can come for 5 minutes or not. And I'm just going to have themes each week.
That sounds really nice.
I'm just, you don't have to talk. You don't have to do anything.
Yes.
Just come dance.
I love it. It's a language in itself, dude. It's so good.
Yes.
So I love doing that. And then I also really stand by writing. Like I'll push that away sometimes, but I've learned that if I'm in a really like heightened state, if I just start writing, it brings me so down.
Or it's letting you get rid of it. It's like letting you let it through.
Yes.
Let it flow through, not keeping it inside.
1,000%. We're just like
yeah,
tossing around in there. Yes. Yeah.
Writing, dancing, comedy.
Yeah.
Therapy.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I just want to hug every single one of those things.
And getting your nails done.
Oh my God.
You always have your nails done.
Getting my nails done. One of my friends is like, okay, money. And I'm like, yeah. Yes. It's the best, dude. And I found this place that gives you a full on massage.
Is this the place you were talking about?
I mean, not full body. They have you stripped completely naked.
Nude manicure.
My whole body is painted right now.
Nice.
No, but I do really love it. I love it. I love it.
Awesome.
I also want to say to myself right now, I'm just saying this to myself, I love you so much. And I think you're so cool. You have an amazing story. You're beautiful, and I want to be your friend. I'm glad I'm your friend. I love you, Amber. I'm glad to be you. Love you.
That's so sweet. I love you too.
I love you. I'm so glad we found each other.
Me too. Love fest. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for sharing space and having me. I'm crying. And I love to cry.
You do?
I do.
I love that you love that.
It's so good.
It's a natural thing. You're releasing stress when you do it.
Right. Right. My friend was like, we never say, why am I laughing? But we're always like, why am I crying? I don't know why I'm crying. It's like,
we learned to
for
judge
something. Right.
I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, you're actually releasing cortisol in your tears. So you're physically releasing stress when you cry. Like, why are you trying to hold that shit in? Like, let it out in whatever way you need to. Like, crying is good for you. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to I'm Fine, It's Fine podcast. I am trauma therapist Melanie Reese, and you can find me across all platforms at Trauma Therapy Nashville.
My name is Amber Autry. I am a comedian here in Nashville and internationally touring. You can find me on all platforms at Amber Autry Comedy. And while you're at it, make sure you're liking, subscribing, sharing, rating, reviewing this podcast. I know that sounds like a lot, but it helps so much. And we're having a good time. We're healing. It feels good. So just like just a little extra sauce, sharing it with a friend, rate and review it. It really helps, and we appreciate it.
Yeah. And if you have a topic or conversation that you want to hear us talk about, or a story you'd like to share on your own, shoot us an email at imfinesometimes@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening.